Chapter 1320. It's you, Clam King of Mirage Sea. It's all you're doing. He pointed his halberd at Shun Mengdai. A golden light instantly pierced through Shun Mengjia's head. It was so sharp and dazzling that it seemed to be able to cut one's vision and cause blood to flow. Li Qingshan wanted to save her, but he was a step too late. Looking at the others, whether they were humans or demons, no one could react in time. The demoness's expressions changed drastically. If this finger was aimed at them, they might be in danger of dying on the spot. However, Shun Mengjia's body rippled as if it was not a real existence, but a reflection in the water. The hole in her head gradually healed, but her smile did not change. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So, it's you. Have you also come to congratulate this Taoist Li? I spared your life back then. It's fine if you are not grateful, but since you dare to come here to seek death, I'll send you on your way." Chualong sneered and walked toward Shun Mengdai step by step. His eyes turned golden and locked onto Shun Mengdai. Shun Mengjia's rippling body froze, as if even the space she was in had been locked. "Taoist, today is my wedding day. This is not appropriate." Li Qingshan stood in front of Shun Mengdai. His imposing body was like a mountain, blocking the turtle dragon's aura from locking onto him and shouldering all of the pressure. He glanced backwards and curled his lips. "Nicely done, Li Qingshan. I'll give you another chance. Submit to me, and I'll let bygones be bygones. I can even guide you to the human realm and make you a guest of the Myriad Phenomenon sect." Guilong stopped. The only one who could force him to stop today was this unfathomable man in front of him. His attitude was still like that of a high and mighty king who wanted to summon a traitor. "Guilong, you're still playing these little tricks at this point. Don't you think it's laughable?" Li Qingshan raised his head. His crimson eyes were like fire as he looked at Guilong. A battle between experts was not just a battle of magic power or divine abilities, but also a clash of willpower. If he had even the slightest hope of avoiding this battle through summon, he immediately weakened. His chances of victory were greatly reduced. And now, with Shun Mengjia's help, his essence, qi, and spirit had become even stronger. Being cuckolded was always a little more pleasant than being cuckolded. "Why don't you wait a little longer? After you drink my wedding wine, we can compete again. I heard that fellow Taoist Sue is the #1 beauty in the world. TSK, TSK. I didn't expect that I would have such luck with women today. If you can wait, it won't be too late to fight after I've entered the bridal chamber and spent my honeymoon." "You're courting death." Chualong squeezed out 3 words from between his teeth. He had never suffered such great humiliation before. His aura surged violently like a dragon soaring into the 9 heavens, roaring angrily. Regardless of whether it was the great cultivators or the monster monarch, all of them retreated repeatedly. They couldn't get within 10 steps of him, and they didn't even have the slightest thought of going against him. Li Qingshan's red hair flew backwards. His clothes fluttered in the wind, but he remained as still as a mountain. His body bent down slightly, like the prelude to a tiger pouncing on its prey. In an instant, a murderous aura filled the air. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A series of muffled sounds of thunder rang out, causing everyone in the palace to feel suffocated and about to vomit blood. However, it was only the collision of their auras. The great cultivators came to a sudden realization. This wasn't a battle they could interfere in. The only thing they could do was distract Li Qingshan a little and force Li Qingshan to attack them. Although victory and defeat could be decided by a hair's breadth, it was very likely that they would have to pay with their lives. At this moment, Shun Mengdai gracefully appeared from behind Li Qingshan. "Hey, you two, think about where you are. Where's Mi Rao? What did you do?" Chua Long vaguely felt that something was amiss today, but he was still concerned about the nine-tailed fox queen's safety. "Hey, hurry up and let my bride come out." Li Qingshan licked his lips, but he was determined to make Chua Long a cuckold. All right. Since you're all so anxious, then the auspicious time has arrived." Shen Mengdai let out a loud cry. Flowers bloomed all around, filling the entire palace. They flew around in a dazzling and joyous manner. A bride wearing a phoenix coronet and red robes walked out from the back of the palace. With every step she took, the beaded curtains rippled and tassels fluttered. It was as if she was dancing, and every step she took made everyone's hearts tremble. Her head was draped with a large red veil, and her face could not be seen clearly. However, she exuded an indescribable charm that instantly attracted everyone's attention. She even directly resolved the imminent battle between Li Qingshan and Chua Long. This was because they could no longer focus all their attention on the powerful enemy in front of them. Even so, she still held an umbrella. The paratrooper leaned on her shoulder and spun it lightly in her hands. She even carried a kitten in her arms. If not for her attire, she did not look like she was here to get married, but rather like a well-bred daughter coming out for a walk. Li Qingshan immediately confirmed that this woman was the legendary nine-tailed fox queen. There was no one else who could display such charm. For a moment, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. Did she want to use him to test Chua Long, or did she really want to marry him? In any case, all of this was definitely not Chua Long's scheme. No man would use this kind of thing to scheme. Chua Long's strength did not need it. Humph, who cares if it's real or fake? If it's fake, then I'll make it real. Hey! The kitten shouted in pleasant surprise and pounced at Li Qingshan. She transformed into a young girl in midair and tightly hugged Li Qingshan. "Xian Yu." Li Qingshan hugged her waist and said with a smile, "Are you a servant girl accompanying me in marriage?" "I am your master, master." Xian Yu used a finger to fiercely poke his forehead. "Your master is about to become my wife," Li Qingshan said meaningfully. No matter what scheme there was, it was time to reveal it. "Mirao, what is going on? Are you joking? Isn't this joke going too far? It's truly difficult for me to accept." Chua Long frowned. His face was originally filled with anger and confusion, but in the end, it turned into a bitter smile. The woman reached under the veil and covered her mouth as she giggled. Li Qingshan's heart wavered. He felt his body become light. He almost could not resist taking off her veil to see what she looked like. "If I say that this is a joke, will you forgive me?" A moving voice floated out from under the red veil. It seemed to be composed of beautiful notes. Chua Long sighed. "How can I say no? I know that I have made you wait for a long time, which is why you are teasing me like this. Forget it. After I take care of this Li Qingshan, I will come and apologize to you." If he had not seen her with his own eyes, Li Qingshan would definitely think that Chua Long was a coward. At this moment, he could not help but understand. He felt that even he would not be much better. This woman was a monster. He could not help but be on guard against her and Chua Long. The woman sighed. "This is not a joke." Chua Long's body shook, and his eyes widened. "What did you say? Don't tell me you've forgotten our agreement." "What agreement?" "You said you would wait." "Yes, but the person I am waiting for is not you," Piao Tian said. Chapter 1321. Even through the red veil, Li Qingshan seemed to be able to see her innocent face. He even felt that she was incomparably cute, which made him wonder if there was something wrong with his head. As if struck by lightning, Chua Long took a step back, his face full of disbelief. "No, this is not true. Mirao, you must be joking with me." You blame me for being tainted by too many women. I promise you, from now on, I will only have you in my heart." Her expression was almost pleading, which made Li Qingshan feel a bit of pity. This scene was like begging the goddess not to break up, but the goddess said, "There is nothing between us. Everything is just your illusion." It was simply a human tragedy, so tragic that he had no friends. So he laughed and thought, "Chualong, oh Chualong, you also have this day. Is this nine-tailed fox queen serious, or is she joking? If she is serious, then who is she waiting for? Could it be me?" Although he knew that the nine-tailed fox queen had been waiting in this world for at least 5,000 years, that his ancestors were not even born at that time, and that he did not even know what the nine-tailed fox queen looked like, he could not help but feel a bit of anticipation. Even though he had already speculated that the reason why the nine-tailed fox queen did not ascend and stayed in 9 regions was most likely like little and waiting for him in 9 regions, waiting for someone to return. And that person was not Chualong, and of course, it was not him. Most likely, she wanted to use him to completely dispel Chualong's delusion. The nine-tailed fox queen said, "Little Long, if I wanted to marry you, I would have married you 5,000 years ago. It is you who never understood. I am doing this for your own good. Marrying me will only bring you endless trouble. For my own good." Chualong pretended to be calm, wanting to ridicule her, but his smile was more like a bitter smile. "Yes, because you are not worthy of me." The nine-tailed fox queen said, as if it was a matter of course, as if she was saying the obvious fact that the sun is round. What a ruthless strike! Li Qingshan shuddered, from his tailbone to the top of his skull. Even though he was watching from the side, he felt that it was incomparably dangerous. He did not expect to be able to hear such words with his own ears. Moreover, it was the moment when he had worked hard in Chualong for many years, thinking that he had achieved success and fame, and was about to return home in glory. He had fallen from heaven to hell in an instant. It was simply filled with a tragic aura. He had exhausted all his means and methods, but the damage he had done to the Hui dragon could not compare to this short sentence. Today's trip was truly worth it. Even if he had to be used as a prop and pretend to be the groom, it was still incomparably delightful. At this moment, he was filled with good feelings towards the nine-tailed fox empress. She was indeed noble, beautiful, and powerful. Chualong's expression changed drastically. I'm not good enough for you." The Minister of Rights couldn't help but shout, "Fellow Taoist Su, what nonsense are you talking about? Our emperor is the ruler of the world. He has gone through 5 heavenly tribulations and cultivated the yang spirit. He is known as the human emperor. As for you, you're just a little demon king. I think you're the one who's not worthy of our emperor." The ministers who came with Chualong to escort the bride all felt extremely humiliated. They simply didn't dare to imagine Chualong's current feelings. Was the nine-tailed fox empress crazy? The nine-tailed fox empress ignored the others and said earnestly, "Xiaolong, you've stayed in the human realm for so many years. Calm down and think about it. Do you have the right to marry me just because you've cultivated the yang spirit and become the human emperor?" Even Li Qingshan couldn't bear to hear it. This was simply adding insult to injury. He couldn't help but clench his fists and prepare to fight. If he was in Chualong's position, he would definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation and kill everyone present. He would definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation and kill everyone present. However, to his surprise, Chualong fell silent for a moment and actually calmed down. He let out a long sigh and said, "Yes, you're right. A mere human emperor isn't qualified. I'm afraid only a perfected immortal is qualified to have you. That's why you're worried that you'll harm me, so you're unwilling to accept my proposal. You're unwilling to follow me to the human realm and want to use this cruel method to end things with me. However, I can't let you wait here any longer, and I definitely won't give up on you. I just have to make you cover up your appearance. One day, I'll become a human immortal or even a perfected immortal, and you'll be able to openly accompany me. Li Qingshan immediately revealed a strange expression. This Chuolong was really sick. What did he mean by only a perfected immortal is qualified to have you? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. However, could it really be, as Chuolong said, that the nine-tailed fox empress was actually thinking about him, which was why she made such a bad plan? However, just thinking about it made him feel annoyed, as if he was being shown affection. What he didn't know was that although Chuolong's words were emotional and exaggerated, they were not empty words. The nine-tailed fox clan was born with endless charm and was favored by all living beings. No matter where they went, they would inevitably be fought over. The Sioux clan was the most charming of the nine-tailed foxes. She was a femme fatale, devastatingly beautiful, and had once caused immortals to fall. And this nine-tailed fox empress, Su Minrao, was specially selected from the Sioux clan of the country of Green Hill. Otherwise, Chuolong wouldn't have lost his composure like this, and Li Qingshan's mind wouldn't have been shaken. After all, they were not newbies who had never seen the world or seen women. In terms of lifespan alone, they had experienced many vicissitudes of life. I'm sorry, but the person I've been waiting for has already arrived. Just as Chuolong was about to express his sincerity, the nine-tailed fox empress words severed all his illusions. Chuolong roared, "I don't believe you. Tell me, who is that person? So far away, yet so close. Isn't it him?" The nine-tailed fox empress lightly grabbed Li Qingshan's sleeve with her slender hands, her voice seemingly containing a hint of bashfulness and sweetness. Happiness came too suddenly. Li Qingshan was intoxicated, almost suspecting that he was dreaming or that he had already fallen into an illusion created by the nine-tailed fox empress, and that everything he saw and felt was fake. However, he had already confirmed a long time ago that everything before him was not an illusion. Theoretically speaking, an illusion like this was impossible. No matter how great the nine-tailed fox empress' hidden strength was, no matter how special her bloodline was, there was a limit to the power of the techniques she could cast in the world of the 9 provinces. Chuolong had to rely on the will of the heavens and the 9 cauldrons of the human emperor to break through this limit. Even with that being the case, she still treated Li Qingshan as a great enemy. So how could she toy with him like this? If it's not an illusion, then am I really the person she's waiting for? Li Qingshan bit the tip of his tongue viciously and powered the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, doing his best to maintain his clarity. No, I can't believe her so easily. Even if all of this isn't an illusion, it might just be a lie from this vixen, so that we can have a vicious battle. But if I win, I definitely won't spare her. However, there was one person who refused to believe it even more than him. Chuolong said furiously, "You're lying to me. He didn't exist 5,000 years ago. Even if he's reincarnated, it's enough for him to reincarnate over 100 times. How did you know he was born here? If he's really the person you're waiting for, why didn't you meet him earlier? Why did you have to wait until today to say it? Sumi Rao, what do you want?" The nine-tailed fox queen shook her head slightly. "All of this is the arrangement of the king. What can I do?" "How is this possible?" Chuolong was shocked. The king of the Green Hill Kingdom must be a demonic immortal, without a doubt. He must have gone through at least 7 heavenly tribulations. He never thought that there would be such a person participating in this tiny world of the 9 provinces. Although he just now said that he wanted to become a human immortal, then a true immortal, and let her stay by his side openly, he knew how difficult the process was, and how slim the chance of success was. On the path of cultivation, the higher one went, the more difficult it would be. There were 3,000 worlds and countless living beings, but only a few could become immortals. In the entire myriad phenomenon sect, there was only one true immortal in 1,000,000 years. That was 1,000,000 years in the human realm. In this process, countless stars were born and worlds were destroyed. Human emperors like him were like carps in a river, innumerable. Which one of them wasn't an amazing talent? But in the end, it was difficult for them to jump out of the 6 paths of reincarnation. True immortals jumped out of the 6 paths of reincarnation and were not part of the 5 elements. They existed with heaven and earth and shone with the sun and the moon. The gap between him and a human emperor was even bigger than the gap between him and a mortal. As for those great cultivators and the demon queen, they hadn't even stepped through the door of immortal ascension, so they couldn't quite understand the shock in Chuolong's heart. Li Qingshan slightly frowned and fell into deep thought. In this way, everything made sense. A peerless 9-tailed fox would only waste 5,000 years in the 9 provinces because of the order of a superior, not because of some infatuation. The king placed me in this world and told me to wait for a fated person here. He said that I don't need to look for that person, and that one day he will come to me by himself. He told me to marry him and be his good wife, to help him realize his wish and go above the 9 heavens. Li Qingshan suddenly raised his eyebrows, and his red eyes were like fire above the 9 heavens. These 4 words had been absent for a long time. Chapter 1322. P.S. Read the exclusive story behind The Legend of the Great Sage and listen to more of your suggestions for the novel. Follow the official account, WeChat, add friends, add official account, type Dixie O'Sheo, and tell me secretly, outside the palace, snow filled the sky, and the coldness was bone-piercing. Inside the palace, thousands of flowers bloomed, and the fragrance filled the air. It was a completely different world. Qingshan, I've specially come to receive you. I've waited for thousands of years for you. You're the chosen one, and I'll become your wife. Once we leave this world, I'll tell you how to go beyond the 9 heavens. The 9-tailed fox empress murmured softly, as if she was dreaming. Li Qingshan's breathing quickened slightly. He stared at the 9-tailed fox empress, and his pupils dilated slightly. Clouds swirled in his eyes. On Crouching Bull Hill, Oxen had taught him to drink wine, eat meat, and kill people. He'd taught him great abilities to pluck the stars and moon, and move mountains and fill seas. All his pursuits, all his dreams, all pointed to beyond the 9 heavens. These words were like a curse. From the moment they appeared, they had been imprinted in his fate. Indomitable spirit, unregretful even in death. It was the deepest obsession in his heart. Unknowingly, the spirit turtle could no longer suppress the fluctuations in his heart. He could not help but extend his hand towards the 9-tailed fox empress, wanting to remove her veil. Under the red veil, the 9-tailed fox empress lips curled into a smile, causing the entire Jasper Palace to brighten. She displayed the so-called charm to the extreme. The palace was enshrouded in a strange fragrance that was faintly discernible. Wondrous music flowed intermittently. The combination of the two was intoxicating, but it was not real fragrance and music. Instead, it was a feeling from the heart. This illusory feeling was more real than any smell or sound. Xianyue said with an intoxicated expression, "Big Black, I've said it before. The Fox Empress is beautiful, noble, and powerful. You're finally willing to believe me now, right?" Helicoverpa, Rosa bit her lip. She had only entered Jasper Palace recently, and she was cruel and heartless by nature, so she had not been charmed that deeply. She felt rather complicated. This man had used violence to conquer her. The man who had made her give birth to a child was gradually falling under the charm of another woman. What was even more tragic was that she was in the same situation. The nine-tailed fox empress had long since stopped restricting her freedom, but she had lost the will to leave this place. She could only watch as she continued to drown. It was as if the prey that had fallen into her spider web had been wrapped tightly by the spider silk and injected with poison. Everything began to melt. Gui Long's face was ashen. His aura continued to weaken, and he fell into chaos. They watched as Li Qingshan lifted the bride's veil, but they couldn't even move a finger. They felt that everything was meaningless and had become a sad joke, an ugly farce. For a moment, the two of them were burning with inner demons. Your Majesty, are you all right? The call seemed to be coming from a great distance, and many faces were wandering around. They were all filled with contempt and mockery. His body twisted and warped, flickering as if he would collapse at any moment. The two men who dominated the 9 regions felt like ice and fire in their hearts. One rose to the 9th heaven, while the other fell into the abyss. But in the eyes of others, it was as if they were possessed, being toyed with by a woman. They couldn't help themselves. On the icy peak, Little and suddenly said, "It's too quiet." Gu Yenying said, "Yes." Just now, Gui Long's aura was like that of a dragon. They thought that there would be a huge battle, but for some reason, it suddenly became quiet again. Logically speaking, when two beasts were stuffed into a cage after a short standoff, it would immediately be a fierce battle. But now, there was no movement at all. It was extremely strange. They can't really be drinking at a wedding, right? Maybe they've been charmed by that vixen. Luo Ho Xiaoming said meaningfully as he played with the wine in his cup. "I'll go take a look." Little and gripped the hilt of his sword and was about to attack Jadeite Palace. What for? If he doesn't even have the ability to fight, then let's disband. Luo Ho Xiaoming raised his head disapprovingly and drank the ice in his cup. Gu Yenying smiled. "I agree, but there's probably something wrong. That 9-tailed fox empress is only a demon king. No matter how scheming she is, it's impossible for her to control Qingshan in a single exchange. That's too inconceivable." Luo Ho Xiaoming countered with a question. "Is she really only a demon king?" Gu Yenying paused for a moment, a thoughtful expression on her face. Little and had already flown through the air, soundlessly landing in front of Jadeite Palace. He cut open the palace gates with a single slash of his sword and flew over the threshold, only to find a desolate snowy plain in front of him. The entire Jadeite Palace had disappeared. At the same time, Li Qingshan took off the red veil. In that instant, an invisible power grabbed the hearts of everyone present. The demon kings were all intoxicated, and even the great cultivators were dazedly rooted to the spot, staring at her in a daze, forgetting everything around them. Only Chuolong seemed to have been struck by lightning. He spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into golden mist in midair, his aura becoming even more chaotic. However, she only had eyes for Li Qingshan. Her jade-like fox eyes seemed to be able to see the depths of the yellow springs drawing in his mind. A red thread suddenly appeared on Li Qingshan's pinky, tightened, and snapped. That was the yearning red thread stained by begonia. He had once let go of his mind to let the red thread wrap around him, but it had been forcefully broken. Li Qingshan felt a pain in his heart. He blinked as if he was trying to wake up. Sumi Rao grabbed his hand and called out, "Lang Jun!" Li Qingshan's eyes became dazed again. Suddenly, a butterfly flew in front of him, glowing with a dreamy radiance, instantly obscuring Sumi Rao's face. Shen Mengdai smiled. "Li Qingshan, oh Li Qingshan, you still haven't woken up from your dream." Xiao Dai, what are you doing? Sumi Rao said plainly, reaching out to grab the butterfly flying in the air. Shen Mengdai seemed to have expected this and dodged it. Hee, it's more interesting to dream when it's strange. And he's the main character. What nonsense are you talking about? Sumi Rao frowned. This woman was sick in the head back then. She couldn't control her with charm, so she specially set up a trap to deal with her. She had been trapped by her problem for thousands of years, yet she didn't die from chi deviation. Instead, she became even crazier. It was really unexpected. Sumi Rao, do you think everything will go as you wish? But you don't know that in this world, the main character is the most powerful. Of course I'll follow him. What future do I have with you? Shen Mengdai declared righteously. A red figure flashed. Sumi Rao arrived. Her robe fluttering and tassels fluttering, her hands turned into countless afterimages like blooming flowers, trapping the butterfly within. Shen Mengdai spun and flew, transforming into countless butterflies, passing through Sumi Rao's fingers from unimaginable angles. Thousands of flowers bloomed. Thousands of butterflies danced. One advanced, one retreated, one chased, one fled. Their clothes fluttered. They didn't look like demonesses. They were clearly heavenly ladies descending to the mortal world. They fought in the narrow space. Not a single trace of chi leaked out, nor did they cause any damage. As if they were in perfect coordination with each other in a graceful dance, it had a dreamy beauty to it. In a daze, it was as if a beautiful white fox was pouncing on a butterfly. The fox's steps were light. The butterfly's dance attracted everyone's attention. Even Chuolong was dazed. He had never seen such a dance in the mortal realm. Humph! Sumi Rao snorted. She was truly angry. A snow-white foxtail suddenly emerged from her dress, slapping the butterfly flying in the air. Huh! Could it be? You're the main character. So miserable. I don't want to live in the female main character's world. It's too crazy. This is a great event. I'm waiting for you to get a cool phone. Follow/Chinese official account. Add friends on WeChat. Add official account. Enter Xiaoshuo. Participate immediately. Everyone will get prizes. Follow Xiaoshuo's official account now. Floating Astronomy. P.S. Sorry for making everyone wait for so long. Writing to this stage will be a huge test for me. I can't be careless. Recently, I've been reading novels diligently. I've almost reached the point where I've lost my mind. It's also one of the main reasons I haven't updated. It's all about turning the accumulation of the past few years into the most exciting story to bring the second half of the legend of the great sage to a higher level. It's almost like I'm thinking of a new book, but it doesn't have the passion of a new book. The difficulty is self-evident. For this goal, I've almost abandoned everything else. I don't want money, I don't want love, I don't want to socialize. I live like an ascetic monk just to do my best and break through my limits. As for how far I can go, I can't be sure. 10 years of facing the wall. It's hard to be a hero. Chapter 13:23. Shen Mengjia's mental nagging made Sumi Rao feel helpless. She sneered. Xiao Dai, I know this isn't your real body, but don't think that I can't do anything to you. Once we leave this world, I still have a way to find your real body. No, this is my real body, Shen Mengdai denied. Her colorful eyes filled with unusual determination. Rao, you can destroy me, but you can't deny my existence. I am a beautiful butterfly. At the end of her words, her eyes drifted, beautiful and sad, but also had the stubbornness of a child. Even Sumi Rao couldn't bear to kill her because of her color. After all, it was just an insignificant clone. The most important thing now was to continue the wedding and completely tame that Li Qingshan. Thus, while trying to guess the madman's thoughts, she patiently said, Since you understand that I am the real main character, then don't be my enemy anymore, all right? Shen Mengdai suddenly prostrated herself on the ground and sincerely prayed to the heavens. Great Lord of Dreams, please forgive my ignorance and arrogance. I shouldn't have guessed your impermanences will. Sumi Rao was stunned. She had seen many madmen, but she was the only one who was as crazy as Shenmeng Dai. Other madmen would die from qi deviation after reaching a certain level of madness. Could it be that she really understood something? She suddenly turned around. No, I can't be influenced by her. There, Shenmeng Dai raised her head and looked behind Sumi Rao, a strange smile on her face. Li Qingshan was still standing in the same place, motionless. His eyes didn't even move, even when they were fighting. He stared blankly ahead, as if Sumi Rao was still standing there. At this time, a tall figure quietly appeared behind him. Rather than letting you become someone else's slave, I might as well kill you myself. Helicoverpa Rosa raised her red lips. She revealed her sharp, poisonous fangs and bit his neck, injecting all the poison into his body. Even though she was charmed, she couldn't leave the nine-tailed fox queen, but that didn't stop her from being driven by jealousy. She wanted to fulfill her long-held wish, kill Li Qingshan. Stop! Sumi Rao was both shocked and furious. The threat to her life might cause Li Qingshan to wake up and break free from the charm. Moreover, Li Qingshan must not die because of her. Yes, Palace Master. Helicoverpa Rosa's eyes were confused. She loosened her mouth and took a few steps back. She couldn't resist her order at all. However, a large amount of poison was still injected into Li Qingshan's body. However, in his state of absent-mindedness, he did not manage to suppress the poison at all. His face immediately turned green and black. It was obvious that he had been poisoned. This is all you're doing. Su Min Rao turned around and glared at Shenmeng Dai. She immediately recalled that Helicoverpa Rosa was lured to Jasper Palace by her. Because of her special relationship with Li Qingshan, Su Min Rao treated Helicoverpa Rosa differently. However, because they had only known each other for a short time, Helicoverpa Rosa could not completely charm her. Who would have thought that such an unforeseen event would occur? Shenmeng Dai snickered. Mi Rao, do you think I don't know that you used Chualong to deal with me? I've been drifting on the sea all this time. Apart from you, my good sister, who else can understand my weakness so well? Naturally, this debt will be placed on your head. Him being an accomplice is only incidental. Have you been pretending to be crazy all this time? Su Min Rao shouted. She could not believe that she would be tricked by an illusion. Shenmeng Dai blinked innocently. What do you mean by pretending? This great uncle, Li, is an old friend of ours. Even if you're the fated main character, I won't stand on your side. Suddenly, he hooted at the sky, You trash, idiot, and idiot! Kill me if you can. However, she was not talking to anyone, but to the so-called Lord of Dreams. After cursing, she closed her eyes. She looked like she was waiting to be killed. After a while, she opened her left hand, then opened her right hand. Ha ha ha, I'm fine. I've had enough of you. Su Min Rao trembled with anger. She finally confirmed that she was really crazy. She had been tricked by a madman. She could not tolerate it. If this continued, she felt that her brain would be damaged. Her hand pierced through Shenmengdia's chest like lightning and grabbed a struggling butterfly. She was about to crush it when she suddenly froze. Su Min Rao slowly turned around and saw a pair of eyes that were burning like fire. Li Qingshan raised his hand and used his innate ability, Ape Demon Absorption. He said, Fellow cultivator Su, please let go of my friend. From the moment the red thread of yearning broke, a sliver of clarity returned to his mind. The Spider Queen's vicious poison had attacked his heart, triggering the warning signs of the spirit turtle, forcing him to respond instinctively for survival. He recovered some clarity again. He looked calm on the surface, but the fear and anger in his heart could not be described with words. He wasn't afraid of death, but if his mind was controlled and he became a slave puppet, then he would truly be in a state worse than death. He had encountered countless dangers in his life. If it were not for Shen Mengdai, he would have almost died today. Now that he thought about it, from the moment he entered the palace, the nine-tailed fox empress had already begun to deal with him. First, she struck the flood dragon viciously to arouse his joy and lower his guard. In the end, she even used above the nine heavens to create an opening and invade his mind in one go. His well-tempered steel was almost as soft as a finger, allowing her to do as she pleased. Su Minrao sighed and said softly, "Lang Jun, is it not enough to have me?" If she tried to kill him, Shen Mengdai would definitely die, but that would definitely incur Li Qingshan's wrath. He would completely awaken from his charms and destroy her thousands of years of planning. At least she did not lie about one thing. She had indeed stayed in this world to wait for Li Qingshan. She had even sworn a blood oath of the Nether River for this and obtained many benefits from the monarch. However, if she was willing to obediently follow the arrangements of others, she would not be Su Minrao. From the moment she arrived in the 9 regions, she began to think about how to swallow the bait and spit out the hook. The flood dragon was the tool she had prepared. At the same time, it was also a good toy. In fact, she had already confirmed that Li Qingshan was the person she had been waiting for. The terrifying aura that appeared on the Ice Sword Cliff could be hidden from those great cultivators with shallow knowledge and insufficient cultivation, but it could not be hidden from her. It was also because of the existence of that aura that she had never dared to act rashly. She even wanted to take a chance and find a loophole in the oath. In any case, as long as Li Qingshan did not take the initiative to look for her, even if he was killed or ascended, she would not have violated the oath. After a few more years, she could remove the blood oath of the Nether River and calmly leave this world. However, she never expected that the tool she had prepared back then would become the opportunity for Li Qingshan to come to see her. All the coincidences and fates did not allow her to escape in the end. To be continued, our 466. Chapter 1324. Su Minrao's green fox eyes rolled around as she thought to herself, "The monarch is from Tushan clan, she knows the secrets of heaven, and is an expert in divination. I'm afraid she has already planned for this. It's fine if she wants to be a concubine, but she still wants to bully me because I'm young and ignorant, trapping me here to suffer. Not to mention that Li Qingshan wants to go above the 9 heavens. It will be extremely difficult. Even if he really becomes a deity or a saint, what good will it do to me? If I'm not careful, I'll be dragged into a great massacre and die. If someone else encountered such a situation, they would be disheartened and simply accept their fate. However, her personality was not so soft, or she wouldn't have set up such an ambush. She gritted her teeth. "Humph, since you're pretending to be generous and won't stop me from fighting him, then don't blame me for bullying him because he's young. Don't blame me for spoiling your plan." Therefore, she unleashed her supernatural powers and her charm even more. Her huge 9 tails stretched out from under her dress and stretched out behind her, as if they were surrounding her on a throne. It was even more like a peacock spreading its tail. Spiritual chi surged towards her and converged into a spiritual light that was visible to the naked eye. It was as if even heaven and earth had fallen in love with her. As for the people in the hall, the imperial advisor of the rite was a Taoist cultivator. He still maintained the body of a child. Needless to say, his temperament and cultivation level were both dazzled and out of control. He tossed the tranquility of Taoism to the back of his mind and suddenly felt that if she could look him in the eye, it would be worth it even if he died immediately. Chua Long was already deeply poisoned. He stared at her figure and thought, "Me, Rao doesn't really want to marry Li Qingshan. Instead, she wants to deal with Li Qingshan. She has caused me to suffer. Sigh, if she had told me earlier, would I not have helped her?" As he thought about it, his mind calmed down, and his qi deviation was not as bad. When Li Qingshan heard the word husband, it was like he was drinking wine. His heart fluttered, and he regained some of his consciousness. He was intoxicated again, and tried his best to keep his mind clear. This was the first time in his life that he had seen such a powerful bewitching technique. In the past, he had been tied up by the red thread of yearning, but he had only treated it as a strand of worry. How could it affect his mind like this? No matter how profound Haitang's rouge staining art is, it's still just a Jindan level technique. This demon fox's strength is definitely not that of a demon king. Otherwise, even the nine-tailed fox clan would not be this powerful. I have 4 or 5 powerful bloodlines in my body. She said that she was waiting here to receive me. I'm afraid it wasn't all a lie. It's not good to fall out with her. Could it be that I'm also under the influence of the charm for having such a thought? Otherwise, how could I not have a trace of killing intent when she set up such a vicious scheme? If he couldn't solve it as soon as possible, I'm afraid I'll sink into depravity again. Thus, he steeled his heart and forced the poison in his body into his eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and skin, blinding his eyes, deafening his ears, and completely sealing off his 5 senses. Only then did his mind calm down slightly. Fellow Taoist Su, since this Hui Long isn't your lover, then there's no enmity between us. Don't force me to make a move. I counted to 3. If you don't let him go, I'll... Sumi Rao caught the butterfly between her fingers. She smiled and said, "Counting again? You're really a one trick to dominate the world. I don't believe you can bear to hurt me. Why don't we continue with the wedding ceremony? After that, I'll listen to you no matter what you want." Even without the hostage, she did not believe that Li Qingshan would be able to attack her. If her charm sealed off her 5 senses, she could just grit her teeth and endure it. He could grit his teeth and get through it. There was no Su Jihu in the world anymore. The reason why Su Jihu was so notorious was not only because she was a femme fatale, but also because she was cute, so she could be forgiven no matter what she did. 1. Although Li Qingshan could not see or hear, her voice and smile were clearly imprinted in his heart. He clenched his fists and took a step forward. "Lang Jun, are you that afraid of seeing me? Lang Jun, are you that afraid to see me?" Sumi Rao smiled sweetly and walked up to him. 2. Li Qingshan raised his fists, but it was as if he was soaking in warm water. His body was weak, and he could not even gather demonic energy, let alone use any divine abilities. Although they had not really fought, the danger was no less than any of the strong enemies he had faced. "Aya, go ahead and hit me. If you kill me, let's see who will be your wife." Sumi Rao puffed out her chest and pouted like a young girl acting coquettishly to her lover. Her fluffy and smooth fox tail quietly wrapped around Li Qingshan's waist. Seeing this, Chua Long's inner demons burned again. He wanted to skin Li Qingshan alive, but he did not dare to act rashly, afraid that he would make her unhappy. 3. Li Qingshan said the last number and punched. Sumi Rao's smile did not change. She looked at the iron fist passing in front of her and suddenly revealed a shocked expression. Li Qingshan's arm extended and punched Chua Long's face. Chua Long was dizzy and could not react in time. His face collapsed and his head collapsed. Li Qingshan grinned. "Good wife, after I kill this cuckold emperor, I will come and marry you." "You." Sumi Rao gritted her teeth. Li Qingshan could not attack her because of her charm, but he could attack others. In an instant, a furious dragon roar resounded through Jasper Palace. Chuolong's headless body rapidly shrunk, revealing a jade seal with a golden dragon coiling around it. It turned into a 5-clawed golden dragon and pounced on Li Qingshan, coiling around him and biting him. All of his hatred was released at this moment, causing Li Qingshan to bleed and his flesh to be torn. "Come at me!" Li Qingshan roared and turned into a ferocious tiger, biting the back of the dragon's neck. His tiger claws were like knives, leaving marks on the golden dragon's back. Li Qingshan's body expanded like a mountain. His red fur stood on end, and a vicious aura soared into the sky. The golden dragon also enlarged like a river. Golden scales shone, and dragon horns towered. Rumble! The two behemoths fought in the most primitive way. The pillars of the hall collapsed, and the jade annulus collapsed. The fine jade palace was reduced to ruins, and the tens of thousands of rooms in the palace were turned to dust. The tiger's roar shook heaven and earth. The dragon's roar startled ghosts and gods. The tiger's roar and dragon's roar filled the sky, causing the expressions of the demoness monarch and the great cultivators to change drastically. As if they had just woken up from a dream, they scattered in all directions. The fierce battle turned this gentle place into a battlefield of slaughter, causing cracks to appear in the void. It turned out that Jasper Palace was the same as the 5 absolute secret tombs, built in a realm that had been created. Normally, it would only appear as an illusion, which caused Little and to miss. However, their strength had long surpassed the limits of the 9 provinces, let alone this small realm, which immediately showed signs of collapse. Sumi Rao's expression changed. She knew that Li Qingshan wanted to use this battle to stimulate his fighting spirit to resist her charm. Between life and death, there was great terror, but also great courage and determination. "Stop it, all of you! Chuolong, you destroyed my Jasper Palace. I'm going to be angry. Li Qingshan, if you don't stop, I'll kill this crazy butterfly." He then picked up Xian Yu and this cat. The battle between the dragon and tiger paused. At this moment, a twisted sword ray tore through the void. Little and used abandoned immortal with his left hand and Buddha slaying with his right. The Buddha slaying sword mercilessly stabbed towards Sumi Rao's chest. Floating astronomy. Little and repeated and continued. Shameless coquettish fox, bitch that thousands of men have sex with. She knows nothing but seducing men. She was still expressionless, and her voice was emotionless. Her pink lips kept opening and closing as if she was reading from a script. But if no one stopped her, she could continue reading without repeating herself. The skeleton demons also cackled in the middle of the battle. They were the most loyal listeners. The demoness kings were stunned. They didn't know how to react. They also seemed to be in disbelief. Even though Li Qingshan and Chuolong were in the middle of a fierce battle, they were still paying attention to the situation over here, because the person they cared about the most in this world was here. Li Qingshan was dumbfounded. He felt like his heart was breaking. He muttered, "My little," and "Shut up!" Chuolong was furious. If not for his battle with Li Qingshan, he would have abandoned Li Qingshan and charged at Little, and Sumi Rao's chest heaved. With her natural charm, she had never been scolded before. She had never been insulted like this. She sneered. "Good, very good. I'll kill you today. No one can save you." Li Qingshan flew into a rage when he heard that. "Bitch, you dare?" Sumi Rao was stunned. She was in disbelief. "You're also insulting me?" A smile appeared on Little Anne's face. Floating astronomy. Only then could he break free from the golden dragon, pounce on the thunder shadow leopard king, and intimidate the demons with a roar. Then she met Little Anne's ethereal eyes. She was gambling with her life. If Li Qingshan's reaction was slightly slower, he might not even be able to break free from the Chua dragon. She might die on the spot. No, Even if she lost the gamble, she could still completely awaken Li Qingshan's fighting spirit and break free from the influence of the charm. Sumi Rao originally wanted to use Shen Mengdai to threaten Li Qingshan, but she could not say anything at this moment. The forsaken immortal sword suddenly shot out from the void, drawing a complicated and profound trajectory. 139 small, white bone swords crisscrossed and enveloped her entire body. The skeleton demon formation contracted at the same time, spewing out samadhi white bone fire. Humph! Sumi Rao flicked her finger without looking back, hitting the forsaken immortal sword's blade and sending it flying. The paper umbrella in her hand spun, and the small white bone swords fell to the ground. The raging flames could not get within 3 zhang of her. She was actually at ease, completely fearless. The only thing she was truly afraid of was the Buddha slaying sword. The bell rang, and the Buddha slaying sword moved. Little and stepped on the skull and swung her sword. Sumi Rao raised her paper umbrella and waited for her to come. She made up her mind. I will teach you a painful lesson and let you understand that men are unreliable. I will let you watch this man die in battle with your own eyes. Compared to killing you, this is the only way to make you feel pain. No one can insult me without paying the price. Under this primordial myriad flower umbrella, you will understand my true terror. Just as she was concentrating, a jade-like hand reached out from the void and gently took Shen Mengdai from her hand. Sumi Rao was alarmed. She dared not be distracted, however, little, and withdrew her sword and did not look at her again. She turned around to help Li Qingshan. Even the smelt bone prayer beads and the forsaken immortal sword formation were withdrawn. After Li Qingshan lunged at the lightning shadow leopard king and ordered the demons to retreat, he immediately retracted all of the tiger demon's abilities. He turned into a spirit turtle and retreated into his shell. Chuolong's furious attacks rained down at almost the same time. His claws and teeth left marks on the turtle shell. Li Qingshan knew very well that an opponent like Chuolong could not be killed by a single eruption from the tiger demon. He had chosen to transform into the tiger demon to stimulate his fighting spirit. He wanted to deal the greatest damage to Chuolong while he was suffering from qi deviation. Through the battle, he truly understood Chuolong's strength. Although he did not gain the upper hand, he managed to force out all of the poison in his body and remove the effects of the charm. However, Chuolong recovered rapidly, as he was not just a human emperor. Chapter 1327. Limited Time Rush by 2015 Summer Korean Edition Male T-shirt short sleeves, silk glossy cotton, genuine German BMW men's casual T-shirt. Limited Time Rush by transparent toe transparent hidden transparent pantyhose. 9.99 renminbi. Give it to your girlfriend. Hee hee. Support the development of this website. Buy from here. Go. Gu Yenying. Do you think you can show off in front of me just because you got a strand of mixed hair? Su Beirao was the first person to discover the feather of chaos when it fell into 9 states. However, she wasn't a feather, so it wasn't worth much even if she got it. She might even get involved in a deadly calamity. It wasn't worth it. Gu Yenying bowed respectfully. I'm not your match. Su Beirao said maliciously, if I want to, you should call me mother instead. The eagle god was like a feather fluttering up and down uncontrollably in the chaos. Even though he didn't rush up to help her, it was only because she didn't really care about him. That shapeless charm was also a suppression of absolute strength. Even human Emperor Qi Long couldn't break free, and even Li Qingshan almost fell for it, let alone a male Fey king. She only needed to give the order, and they would be able to kill each other. Gu Yenying said with a smile, if you like my useless father, it's naturally my honor. It's only right for me to call you Mother Empress. It's just a change of name. Su Beirao felt like she had punched empty air, and her chest felt stuffy. She knew Gu Yeniying's past very well, because she had secretly decided to collect her. She was only waiting for her to pass the third, heavenly tribulation before making a move. However, Li Qingshan appeared halfway, and their conflict deepened. At that time, she didn't want to have anything to do with Li Qingshan, so she gave up. The person Gu Yenying valued and missed the most was her mother. She thought that she could use this weakness to anger her and deepen the charm's influence. He hadn't expected to receive such an answer. Instead, he felt like he was the one who had suffered a loss. She sneered. I didn't expect that even someone like you would fall to this point, risking your life for a man. Gu Yenying said, Sigh, could it be that in your eyes there is only love between a man and a woman? Su Beirao questioned. You dare to say that you haven't fallen in love? With a swish, Gu Yenying unfolded her folding fan, covering half of her face. It was clearly the shy posture of a woman. However, he was still as carefree as ever. He smiled and said, Humans are not plants. How can we be emotionless? A strange light flashed in Sumi Er's eyes. Good. No wonder that Li Qingshan fell in love with you at first sight, but couldn't get his hands on you. You will be one of my best collectibles. Come on. Gu Yenying smiled and shook her head. I don't want to be a collector's item, and I don't want to fight with you. I just want to give you some advice. Oh, the great fox of Su, charming all living beings. Don't you think it's a bit ugly that you have to personally fight and kill? Sigh, this can't be helped. Who told those stinky men to be so disobedient? And there's also such an intelligent woman, like you, who is so stubborn. Su Beirao sighed helplessly and even blinked innocently, almost making Gu Yenying believe her. She was relying on the hot wind of hell to maintain a thread of clarity. Even if you get what you want in this battle, the women in Qiongyu Palace will probably have their souls scattered. Gu Yenying pointed her folding fan at the chaos. The tornado split open a path, and the five-clawed golden dragon was gradually tearing apart the spirit turtle's shell. However, the Thunder Phantom Leopard King was bitterly holding on under the spirit turtle. Li Qingshan didn't let her go when he transformed from a tiger demon into a spirit turtle. She was bound by the laws of heaven and earth and couldn't rush back in a short time. This was the only way now. Su Beirao knew that if she didn't leave, Li Qingshan wouldn't be at ease. Perhaps she had already lost the moment he broke free from the charm. It was indeed meaningless to continue entangling with him, but she was unwilling to give up. Qilong, don't blame me for being heartless. I'm bound by the blood oath of the river Styx and have to marry this man. I originally wanted to solve it myself, but I didn't expect it to be in vain. I only hope that you can help me break free, so that we can continue our previous fate. Qilong's aura was greatly boosted when he heard this. Like all heroes who fought against the Demon King, he felt the encouragement of true love. The golden dragon fiercely bit off a piece of tortoise shell. Li Qingshan cursed, this stupid cuckold emperor. But he was relieved in his heart. Su Beirao smiled slyly and grabbed Gu Yenying's hand. Yenying, you have to accompany me. In an instant, the Kuan Peng spread its wings and flew thousands of miles. To be continued, M00SY. Come. Its four horns were missing, and the golden dragon coiled around it was missing scales and claws, as well as a dragon head. Suddenly, a hand picked up the jade seal. In the blue sky, the Kuan Peng was riding on the gales. It flew towards the eastern sea. Don't worry, there's no need to hold it so tightly. I won't go back, Sumi Rao smiled. Do you think he can win without me? At least he has a better chance of winning. Gu Yenying didn't dare to be careless. Being by her side was even more dangerous than facing the Chuolong. With her current speed, the Chuolong couldn't hurt her, while her charm was invisible. "You're wrong. I'm his only chance of survival. If it weren't for me, he might already be dead. I've been helping him all this time, but he doesn't appreciate it and insists on walking that path of death." Sumi Rao shook her head, regretfully. "Is that so?" Gu Yenying didn't deny it. "You don't believe me? It's no wonder your cultivation level isn't high enough. Even though you obtained the inheritance of the great sage of chaotic heavens, you haven't completely converted it into your own power, nor have you seen the power of a human sovereign." The great sage of chaotic heavens. Gu Yenying thought with her cultivation she probably already knew about the Kuan Peng feather. If she had taken action, how could it have fallen into the hands of the feather human king Baichun? She asked, "Why didn't you take it? Even if you don't need it, there are still many feather race in your Jasper Palace." "Because I don't want them to die for nothing," Sumi Rao sighed. "So you're saying that Mi Rao is as gentle and loving as I thought. Everything she did was out of goodwill." "Ha, no need to be sarcastic. I was bound by the River Styx blood oath, so I had to help Li Qingshan, help him become your slave. He was born with such charm. He can't blame me for not being able to control himself. But have you ever thought that when I married him, all I had to do was pull him under the primordial myriad flower umbrella, and he wouldn't be able to escape from me? I was the one who caused Chuolong to go berserk, causing him to be unable to use his full strength, forcing him to fight with Li Qingshan in the most foolish way possible. It's true, I actually didn't want Li Qingshan to die here. But since he chose this path himself, don't blame me. So it's the Rahu race. I heard that a godchild of the Azura path fell and left, claiming to be the peerless genius second only to Luo Holuo since the birth of the Azura path, the chosen one who can reunite the various tribes of the Azura path. Could it be you? No wonder you could shatter my true dragon jade seal. This is the only natal magical treasure that I've brought from the 9 regions to the human realm. It has gathered the dragon chi of the 9 regions. And I've also collected the 5 elements pure metal in the human realm. It's incomparably sturdy, but it was almost destroyed by your attack. Shockingly, the owner of that hand was the mortal Emperor Qilong. Chapter 1329. Li Qingshan, I actually have to thank you. At this point, Chuolong bowed slightly. His anger had already disappeared without a trace, but it did not affect his majesty as an emperor at all. Instead, he regained his bearing as if everything was under his control. If not for you, I would have forever sunk into her charm. Perhaps I would never have known her. After all, she was a fox with Su Jihu, but if not for that, she would not have been qualified to be my empress. Chuolong, I remember she said she wanted to marry me. Li Qingshan spat out the last word and suddenly activated the tiger demon roar kill. A violent gale rushed into the sky. Chuolong used his fingers like a sword and cut through the gale. Even his clothes did not flutter. Only the strong can be the most beautiful in the world. Well said. Li Qingshan's right arm expanded and stretched across the sky. He spread his fingers and enveloped Chuolong, absorb. Chuolong's fluttering clothes and hair froze as if they were sealed in invisible amber. Li Qingshan clenched his fists. Destroy. Chuolong's body disintegrated and turned into clouds of dense golden dragon chi. Quite a powerful innate ability, but it's useless. The transformation of the yang spirit is extremely soft and also extremely hard. The dragon chi condensed and returned to its original appearance. His smile did not change. Li Qingshan attacked one after another, using all kinds of innate abilities, but none of them could really hurt Chuolong. Luo Ho Xiaoming held the slingshot silently. Little and held his sword and did not attack. They watched Li Qingshan deal with Chuolong alone. It was very different from when he transformed into a golden dragon. Chuolong allowed Li Qingshan to attack, but did not fight back. It was like an adult playing with a child. Li Qingshan finally stopped and panted slightly. The restrictions of the laws of heaven and earth made it difficult for him to absorb spirit qi. The recovery of his demonic qi was very slow. Moreover, the only innate ability of the Phoenix transformation, Phoenix Nirvana, had not been fully recovered. He could at most be reborn once in this battle. If he did it again, he would become an egg. Very good. You finally realized the gap between us. Why are you glaring at me? To thank you, I've already let you have many moves. I know that the identities and legacies of the three of you are extraordinary. If any of you had the same cultivation base as me, I would have been able to kill you. I will definitely retreat. So, I actually don't want to be enemies with you. Why don't we try to turn enemies into friends? When Zhuo Long gained the upper hand, he actually showed signs of wanting to reconcile, as if he was afraid of Li Qingshan and the others' identities and was unwilling to get into trouble. What do you think? Li Qingshan glanced at Luo Ho Xiaoming and Little, and, as if he really wanted to reconcile, Chuo Long smiled faintly. Nothing was easier to deal with than an enemy who had lost the will to fight. Yes, he had never wanted to reconcile. If he was afraid of Li Qingshan and the other two's identities and backgrounds, he would have thought of a way to reconcile with them. However, the great Tao was competing for supremacy. There was no room for weakness. To reach this stage of cultivation, everyone had experienced countless dangers. Wealth came from danger. The divine blood of the Azura clan, Little N's legacy of white bones, and Li Qingshan's cultivation method were all treasures that were hard to find in the human world. They were worth risking their lives. If he let them go today, with their bloodline inheritance, their cultivation speed would definitely be far faster than his, and it was hard to guarantee that they would not take revenge in the future. That would truly be living a life worse than death. Little N said, he hasn't fully recovered from his injury, so he wants to buy time. Chuolong was shocked. He didn't expect her to see through him. The Yang spirit was soft and hard, as fast as lightning, and invincible, but it was most afraid of inner demons. Although the body was a bag of flesh that had to be abandoned, it was also a ship to cross the sea of bitterness. In the state of out-of-body experience, one had to control oneself with a strong mind. Once he went crazy, the consequences would be unimaginable. Luo Ho Xiaoming said, we can fight, but we have to wait for Yening to come back and restrain the speed of his Yang spirit. Humph, he's just a human emperor. How dare he put on an act in front of me? Li Qingshan smiled and said, don't say that, he's still very strong, and we need the four of us to fight him. But if you want to use psychological attacks, you should look at your opponent first. Chuo Long, I'm going to kill you. You. Chuo Long showed a look of anger and could no longer maintain the demeanor of an emperor. His expression became solemn. In today's battle, no one would be spared. We've arrived at the East Sea. Gu Yening descended from the sky with Sumi Rao and landed on a cliff on the East Sea, surrounded by white clouds. The cliff was thousands of feet high, rugged and steep, as if it had been carved by a knife and an axe, overlooking thousands of miles of the sea. The moist sea breeze blew in their faces, the water rippled, and the seagulls gathered. It was a magnificent and peaceful scene. Yunya Mountain, I haven't been here for a long time. Sumi Rao showed a nostalgic look. This was a famous scenic spot in Yunzhou and even in the world. Over the long years, she had come here many times, but in the end, she was tired of it. When there was so much time that it was difficult to squander, it would become a great burden. Yening, you're a disciple of legalism. It's rumored that the deepest depths of the Hell Realm The Avicii Hell no longer carry out any punishments. All it does is extend every inch of time by 1,000 times. I wonder if that's true or not. I don't know. No one has ever been able to connect with the Avicii Hell. They held hands. One was a femme fatale, devastatingly beautiful, while the other was elegant and outstanding. At first glance, they seemed like a pair of lovers touring the scenery of Yunya Mountain. Must we go back? Sumi Rao tightened her grip on Gu Yenying's hand. Definitely, Gu Yenying said firmly. She could use the feathers of chaotic heaven to transform into a Kuanping and return to the Dragon Province and the battlefield quickly. This was something she had considered before she brought Sumi Rao to the East Sea. Sumi Rao pouted. You said you wanted to listen to me talk about the kingdom of Green Hill. So you were lying. Sorry. Next time. Gu Yening apologized seriously. What if I insist on not letting go? Sumi Rao wrinkled her nose, which made her seem even more like a spoiled child. If you like it, I'll give this hand to you. They had thought that this was a shortcut to ascending to the human world, but they did not expect it to be a life-threatening talisman. If only he had known this would happen. He had to stop the emperor from worshipping the heavens no matter what. Chuolong had a panoramic view of everyone's expressions. He could even sense the intense fluctuations in their minds. He sneered in his heart, wanting to take a shortcut but not willing to take risks. How could there be such a good thing in the world? He did not care whether the Emperor Dragon King could successfully return. It was enough as long as Li Qingshan came to stop him. Every bit of energy he expended would increase his chances of winning. It would be even better if Li Qingshan was not willing to fall for it. He could then calmly adjust his yang spirit and suppress his inner demons. When he returned to the imperial court, the outcome would be set. This was an overt plot. Flames shot out from the stern of the ship as the Emperor Dragon King began to accelerate. At this moment, a thick shadow suddenly shrouded them. The officials looked up and saw a huge mountain rising from the ground, shooting straight into the clouds and blocking the path to the east. Under the mountain, 2 red stars flashed. It was Li Qingshan's fiery tiger eyes as he carried the entire mountain with his fiend god body. The deck was filled with cries of surprise. Even though they had seen it once on Dragon Head Mountain, they were still frightened and felt an irresistible sense of weakness when they saw it again. Chuolong sat upright on the dragon throne, unmoved. His eyes flashed with golden light. My beloved officials, be careful. This thief is coming. Li Qingshan roared out and hurled as hard as he could. The mountain smashed towards the Emperor Dragon King. Chuolong waved his hand. Boom! The main cannon of the Emperor Dragon King, Dragon's Roar, opened fire and blasted through the mountain, leaving a large hole with a radius of 300 meters. The momentum of the falling mountain paused, as if it was frozen in midair. Almost at the same time, the deck and the body of the ship were densely packed with cannons. In an instant, tens of thousands of cannons fired in unison, and the dazzling light beams blasted the mountain into pieces. Smoke and dust hung high in the sky like a yellow cloud, and gravel scattered like hail. The Emperor Dragon King broke through the smoke and clouds, passing over Li Qingshan's head and going straight into the clouds. Chuolong stood on the dragon head of the ship and looked down at Li Qingshan. He casually pointed, and thousands of spiritual lights shot towards the ground. Boom, 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 boom. The light beams fell like rain, and semicircular light balls rose from the ground. Hills were razed to the ground, leaving behind a land riddled with holes. The 1,000-meter-tall demon disappeared, and Li Qingshan turned back into his human form. He spread his wings of wind and shuttled through the densely packed light beams with a storm. He even went against the flow of the light beams and arrived at the bottom of the Emperor Dragon King, a blind spot where the firepower was the least concentrated. He gripped the living soil of the Nine Heaven tightly and unleashed the Earth force field. The Emperor Dragon King shook violently as if it was suddenly pressed down by a mountain, and its soaring momentum came to a halt. The sound of steel and wood twisting and cracking filled their ears. The great cultivators on the ship all felt like a great disaster was about to befall them. "Break for me." Li Qingshan took advantage of the situation and punched out. The power of vibration surged wildly, and black cracks appeared in the void. There was no formation in the world that could block his punch. In fact, just the strength of the ox demon contained in his fist was enough to break through all barriers. Moreover, there was also the invincible vibration power, which was enough to split the Emperor Dragon King into two. But at this moment, the golden light quickly gathered at the bottom of the ship. All the spiritual power of the formation that enveloped the Emperor Dragon King was gathered at this point, and it was as dazzling as a golden sun. It forcibly blocked the terrifying power of vibration and bounced back Li Qingshan's fist. Li Qingshan frowned and spread his wings to fly away. How could he not understand Chuolong's plan? He could not waste too much energy here. He had wanted to concentrate all his strength and defeat the enemy in one blow, but he had underestimated Chuolong's methods. Chuolong reclined on the dragon throne and held an exquisite golden compass in his hand. It was the core of the formation plate that controlled the formation. Other than him, no one in the world could have such fast reaction speed and control to operate the formation to such a level. Chapter 1331. When Chuolong was dealing with Li Qingshan's attack, he split his attention into three, paying attention to where Luo Ho Xiaoming and Little and were at the same time. If they took the risk to launch a sneak attack, he was confident that he could kill them here. No matter how powerful their inherited bloodline was, they had only gone through 3 heavenly tribulations. However, to his disappointment, the two of them maintained a safe distance from him, not giving him a chance to attack. Luo Ho Xiaoming had fought in the Azura realm for countless years, so no one could have a better grasp of the overall situation. He had just gone through 3 heavenly tribulations and had not reached the peak, so the power he possessed was limited. At the same time, he was bound by heaven's will. He had to ensure that every pellet had a decisive effect, so he would not attack easily. Little N was intelligent, and very few people could compare to her. She had the same judgment. Her Buddha-slaying sword was a sword of absolute killing, so the other white bone treasures had to be used to protect her body and prevent Chuolong's sneak attack. If they wanted to obtain victory in this battle, it was still far from the time for her to attack. There really are no flaws. As expected, "I have to kill you first, Li Qingshan." Chuolong sneered and waved his hand, ordering, "Fellow Taoists, what are you waiting for?" The officials looked at each other. Just now, when Li Qingshan used the earth force field, they were also affected. They felt as if all the bones in their bodies were about to be crushed by their own weight, and they were still aching now. If they faced Li Qingshan head-on, they would probably die in vain. Don't worry, this great imperial dragon formation is extremely sturdy, and it can allow you to use your spells without facing the enemy head-on. If that Li Qingshan breaks through the formation and enters, it will be like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, and there will be a calamity of destruction. Chuolong looked slightly displeased, and there was a faint threat in his tone. Yes, none of the officials dared to disobey. They all unleashed techniques and wielded their arcane treasures, ready to give Li Qingshan a head-on blow. However, they felt like they were provoking a furious tiger through a paper cage. It was truly frightening. Hey, that Li Qingshan is gone. At this time, the Emperor Dragon King was already high up in the sky, but he couldn't find any trace of Li Qingshan. The nation protecting eagle gods eyes narrowed. Up there! Li Qingshan's attack missed, and he immediately let go. He soared into the astral wind layer and continued to ascend. No matter how the astral winds howled, they were unable to harm him in the slightest. He had cultivated to this level. The so-called astral winds and magnetic forces were unable to stop him from ascending to the heavens and descending to the earth. Chuo Long stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky. How are you going to resolve this situation? The astral wind suddenly calmed down a lot. Through the radiance of the sun, the stars shone in the dark void. Li Qingshan looked straight at the light of the sun. It was not the real big fireball that he remembered from his previous life, but more like an illusion. He suddenly felt that this world was a mystery. When he turned his head, in an instant, he had a panoramic view of the entire 9 states: the jade-green Mist Province, the snow-white Frost Province, the yellow sands of the Scarlet Province, the sea of clouds of the Cloud Province. The waves of the 4 seas surrounded this continent of the 9 states. This is the world that I have always been fighting in. The huge Emperor Dragon King turned into a golden floater and slowly swam towards the center of the Dragon Province. In the east, a dark azure bird flew through the air. Although the ministers were all great cultivators, and their attacks were more flexible, the range of their magic treasures was limited. Their minds were also in a state of panic. By the time Li Qingshan entered the attack range, it was already too late. As a result, they could only watch as the meteor fell from the sky. It was clearly a live target, but no one on the ship had any way to counterattack. It seemed like a stupid frontal attack, but it was the best way to break out of this situation. At this moment, no one could stop him. In an instant, the meteor hit the Emperor Dragon King. Crack! The golden compass in Zhuolong's hand shattered. The golden barrier suddenly shattered, and with a loud bang, Li Qingshan fell heavily onto the deck. A large hole immediately appeared under his feet. In an instant, the shockwave spread to every corner of the Emperor Dragon King. Cabins collapsed one after another, and billions of wood splinters flew everywhere. The dragon bones twisted and snapped, and the huge Emperor Dragon King was almost broken into 2. The wings of the wind god suddenly folded, and the fierce astral wind was like an invisible sword, destroying everything in its path. The ministers and great cultivators bore the brunt. Their protective magic treasures were torn apart by the violent astral wind, and their fragile bodies were instantly chopped into minced meat. Their Yuanying wanted to escape, but it was also sucked into the astral wind and turned into ashes. Only 7 or 8 people survived. In an instant, the glorious and luxurious Emperor Dragon King was almost turned into ruins, and it was falling rapidly. Li Qingshan stood in the ruins, raised his head, stared at Zhuolong, and spat out one word: "Get lost." The great cultivators who had survived the calamity fled without a care for anything else. Floating astronomy. P.S. The final battle of 9 regions is coming. Ask for a monthly ticket. Chapter 1332. Not all of them were cowards. They cultivated for longevity, not out of loyalty and patriotism. Moreover, they had never seen Zhuolong not long ago, so there was no loyalty to speak of. If they escaped the battlefield, they might have to face Zhuolong's wrath later, but he would not kill them. If they continued to fight with Li Qingshan, only death awaited them. After weighing the pros and cons, it was naturally better to escape as far as possible. Silong said coldly, "Trash will always be trash." With a cry, sharp eagle claws slashed towards Li Qingshan's face, swift as thunder and sharp as lightning. Li Qingshan did not seem to see his existence and had no intention of dodging. He only stared at Zhuolong with his head held high, his right hand opened like a claw, and his killing intent condensed. Although he did not want to kill Gu Yeniying's father with his own hands, he would not show mercy in a battle of life and death. "All right, you can go back," Chuolong ordered. The eagle flew into the sky at the critical moment, its sharp claws brushing past Li Qingshan's eyes. If it went any further, it would be a battle of life and death. Chuolong smiled and sighed. "I know you are not willing to go to the human realm. From now on, you are free." The eagle turned back into human form, knelt down on one knee, looked at him deeply, then spread its wings and flew away. In an instant, it turned into a black dot embedded in the depths of the blue sky. In the past, when he was young, he was accompanied by eagles and wolves, achieving hegemony in the world. Now, when the wolf died, the eagle flew away. Even as a human emperor, there was a trace of loneliness in his heart. But this was the way of cultivation. The imperial dragon king was still falling rapidly, and with splinters were flying everywhere. Chuolong returned to the dragon throne and sat down, still looking down. "Li Qingshan, I have indeed underestimated you. But even if you destroy this broken boat, what can you do to me?" At the same time, he used the broken true dragon jade seal to suppress his inner demons. Under the influence of heaven's will, his inner demons were slowly calming down. And his extraordinary temperament and cultivation were manifested. And to a cultivator, this was real power. You will know soon. Li Qingshan smiled and operated the small world to recover his demonic aura. On this rapidly falling lone boat, there was a moment of strange silence. At the next moment, Chuolong's eyes flickered as he looked toward the east with a surprised expression. Under the blazing sun, the rock spread its wings and flew 10,000. Li Chuolong didn't expect Sumi Rao's charm technique to fail to capture Gu Yenying. Moreover, he did not expect Gu Yenying to willingly throw herself into this life-risking battle. "I really don't know how you did it. If I had to choose between her and that fox, I would definitely choose her. This is the power of true love. Let me ask you, are you scared?" Gu Yenying heard this from afar and could not help but roll her eyes. She recalled the scene she saw when she flew over Dragon Head Mountain. Under the heaven-climbing vine that connected heaven and earth, the heroes gathered around the Temple of Heaven. Under the leadership of the previous emperor, they worshipped the Chuo dragon's body. Thus, he revealed a meaningful smile. Chuolong smiled, faintly, and did not panic. "Do you think that a fake Kuan-Peng can threaten a true dragon? You probably don't know. The worship to the heavens has been completed." "What?" Li Qingshan's heart tightened. "The worship to the heavens had already begun when I set off. By the time I returned to Dragon Head Mountain, the outcome had already been decided." Chuolong raised his right hand and spread his fingers as if everything was under his control. He also felt his mind tense up. At this moment, a golden light swept past the ground. Dragon roars sounded from the foot of the mountain. The Huilong rushed out of the ground and flew towards the peak. Li Qingshan leaped forward. He held the 9 heaven life soil tightly in his right hand and punched out. There was no explosion, no destruction. His fist was blocked by an invisible barrier. Layers of ripples appeared in the void, but they instantly disappeared. He was unable to cause any damage. Around the heaven altar, 9 cauldrons were arranged. They were the 9-continent cauldrons formed by combining the world god seal. Not only was the Shuang Prefecture cauldron reforged, but even the huge cauldron that the Banyan Tree King had devoured back then was reforged. 9 pillars of light shot out from the 9 cauldrons, stirring up the wind and clouds and rushing into the sky. They surrounded the sky-climbing vine in the middle like a towering pillar that held up the sky. They also resonated with each other. their auras connected, forming an indestructible whole. The nine-continent barrier. Li Qingshan's heart sank. This was no longer a cultivator's array formation. Instead, it was a heaven and earth array formation that condensed the laws of this world. If he wanted to break this barrier, he would have to defeat this world. Very good, you really came. Then you shall die here. The Huilong smiled at Li Qingshan. He still had the confident expression of having everything under control, but there was also a hint of smugness of victory. At this stage, the worshipping of the heavens had actually been completed. The God seal that was born from heaven and earth was the bridge between all living beings and the world. The 9 cauldrons that were forged by the God seal were even more important to the country. Without the 9 cauldrons, no matter how many people's hearts he had won, it would all be in vain. He would not be able to turn it into real power, and he would not be able to completely break the restraints of the laws of heaven and earth, even if he was fighting against the Devil King that was going to destroy the world. Only by gathering the hearts of all living beings and making his will listen to the heavens, reversing the will of the heavens, would he be able to achieve the oneness of heaven and human, allowing him to unleash the real power of the human sovereign. No, not only that the power he unleashed in this world would be 10 times or even 100 times stronger than in the human realm, completely crushing Li Qingshan and the others. Under everyone's gaze, the Huilong passed by the crowd and ascended the heaven altar. In an instant, the inner demons disappeared without a trace. The will of all living beings was enough to eliminate any distracting thoughts, and the will of the heavens made him extremely calm, no longer having any emotional fluctuations. He was the master of the world, the son of heaven. Chapter 1334. The sun was high up in the sky, and the sky was clear. On the peak of the mountains, there was dead silence around the altar. All kinds of expressions froze on their faces, as if they were funny masks. Chuolong was dumbfounded. To him, losing his physical body was an unbearable loss. Even if it was just a fragile mortal body, it was still crucial to his cultivation. Moreover, it was the body of a true dragon that he had painstakingly cultivated. He did not leave his physical body here without any preparation. Instead, he had prepared all kinds of defensive measures. Even if Li Qingshan suddenly attacked him, he would not be injured in the slightest. However, he had neglected the sky-climbing vine that could pierce through the void. It pierced through all his defenses inch by inch, draining all his blood essence bit by bit. The green and tender vine weaved to form a woman's face. She said, "Your Majesty, you're back. Look at your expression now. It's so funny. Did something bad happen to you?" He. She didn't leave. Gu Yening was slightly surprised. After doing such a thing, not only did she not run away, she even dared to provoke Chuolong. It was as if she was going to face Chuolong's fury alone. That's Qian Rongji. Interesting indeed. Luo Xiaoming was very interested. Taking advantage of the fact that Chuolong was in Jasper Jade Palace and had lost his connection to his physical body, it was not a big deal for him to set him up. To dare to provoke him like this, one must have extraordinary courage. In the cultivation world, there was a strict hierarchy. Those who were inferior would instinctively fear those who were superior. Even if they were undefeatable, they would still tremble in fear. And she should know very well that one sky-climbing vine was not enough to protect her life. A sharp laughter filled with malice startled Chuolong. With a flash of golden light, it was as sharp as a sword and cut through his face. He shouted angrily, "Qian Rongji, what did you do?" As if to answer his question, there were exclamations around the altar. The former great Xia Emperor felt a pain in his foot. It was so slight that it was hard to notice. However, it pierced through his protective artifact and strong body. It penetrated deep into his soul, and approached his nascent soul. In an instant, he was like a balloon that had been pierced by a needle. His essence, chi, and spirit surged out uncontrollably from the needle hole. He felt an unprecedented terror. As far as the eye could see, thousands of vines drilled out from the ground. They stretched out, twisted, entangled, and penetrated like a group of snakes dancing wildly. Among them were many horrified faces. It turned out that the vines had already covered the ground around the Temple of Heaven. This was no longer a solemn place for worshipping the heavens, but a terrible trap. To a certain extent, Chuo Long was the one who had set this trap. Chu Tian was born with the sky-climbing vine, and when it was taken away by Qian Rongji, it only grew into a bonsai after more than 20 years. Of course, it was because most of the pure spiritual energy extracted from the mortal realm was used by him for cultivation. However, it also showed how much resources the sky-climbing vine needed. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, it would even seem a little useless, if not for the 5,000 years of preparation of the great Xia dynasty. It would have taken almost all the resources of the country to irrigate it. Even after another 1,000 years, it wouldn't be able to grow to such an extent. In fact, it might even stagnate. No matter how pure the extracted spiritual energy was, it was still limited. This strange grass that could penetrate the boundaries and connect to the world, once it grew up, it would definitely not be a safe, harmless flower for people to enjoy. Fresh blood splattered, and the shadow cloud crane king resolutely cut off its legs. Li Qingshan frowned, recalling the scene many years ago. However, at that time, it was just a small hill, but now it was the peak of the entire 9 states. Even the high and mighty human emperor had been poisoned by it and suffered heavy losses. Bitch, do you think I can't kill you just because you hide in the sky climbing vine? Chuo Long roared angrily, and like a knife, he cut open the main trunk of the sky-climbing vine. Although the sky-climbing vine was terrifying, in the face of a stronger power, it was as weak as a normal plant. He easily grabbed Qian Rongji, who was hiding inside, and felt a familiar aura from her body. It was his true dragon bloodline. Because he could not digest it, 2 dragon horns protruded from the top of his head, and his body was covered in scales. However, his eyes, rather than dragon eyes, were more like snake eyes, staring at Chuo Long cruelly. He became even more furious, and golden light flashed in his eyes. Her flesh and blood flew everywhere, and in the blink of an eye, only a bloody human figure was left. Many beautiful snakes crawled out of it, looking extremely ugly, little, and was expressionless, and he held the hilt of his sword tightly. Li Qingshan sighed in his heart. He felt that children were getting harder to understand as they grew up. Although he did not like Qian Rongji, he was still a person who could distinguish between kindness and hatred, and would not leave her to die. However, even without the barrier of the 9 states, they could not take her from Chuo Long. However, her laughter did not stop for a moment. Instead, it became even more joyful, and she urged, "Hurry up, kill me. I have the true dragon bloodline. This little injury is nothing." Her voice was low, like a snake hissing. "If you kill me, this sky-climbing vine will wither, and you will not be able to return to the human realm, and you will be strongly rejected by this world. If you kill me, the true dragon son of heaven, you will be regarded as an enemy by the heavenly will, and the situation will be even more worrying. You will let Li Qingshan take advantage of it." The sky-climbing vine played a similar role to the sky-reaching ghost tower, and both could allow existences beyond the limits of this world to come to the 9 states. However, Emperor Li could not leave the sky-reaching ghost tower. While Chuo Long used all kinds of methods and the advantage of being born in this world to almost turn this world into his own garden. However, Qian Rongji was equivalent to replacing Chuo Long to complete the sacrifice and become the true son of heaven. Even if she did not have much power to use, she was still blessed by the heavenly will, and killing her would be retribution. Chuo Long trembled all over. He naturally understood this, and so he did not kill her. On the contrary, his heart was even more depressed than just now, and he almost spat out blood. The demons in his heart became more and more intense, and there were signs of qi deviation. What was more frightening was that the heavenly will began to change, and his power was also suppressed. If this continued, it did not mean that he would explode and die when he fought with Li Qingshan and the others, and his soul would be destroyed. How dare a bitch like you swallow my flesh and ruin my great plan? You took mine, give it back to me. With a trace of clarity in his mind, he threw his yang spirit into Qian Rongji's body. As long as he succeeded in taking her body, he would still be the true dragon son of heaven, and all his mistakes would be corrected. To be continued. Chapter 1335. Chuo Long threw all of his yang spirit into Qian Rongji's body. The process of possession was very smooth. Even the heavenly will couldn't stop him at all. That bitch dared to use the sky-climbing vine to devour my flesh and blood, but she couldn't digest it at all. She thought that she could threaten me with the mandate of heaven, but she didn't know that all living beings were calling my name. She was so stupid that she dug her own grave. As if a king had returned, he encountered no resistance wherever he went. Soon, he reached the capital of the kingdom. All that was left was to kill the thief who had stolen the kingdom. This process took less than a breath of time. The golden dragon qi permeated every inch of her flesh and blood, every bone, and every meridian. It was as if the emperor's army had restored the world, and in the end, there was only one lonely city left, her nascent soul, but it was not in the shape of a baby, but a coquettish poisonous snake. The snake's head bit the snake's tail, forming a ring as if it wanted to devour her. Chuo Long prided himself on his vast knowledge, yet he'd never seen such a strange-looking nascent soul. When he thought about how it was all thanks to him that she was able to overcome the third heavenly tribulation so quickly, he became even more furious in his heart, and he wished for nothing more than to crush her immediately. This was undoubtedly the fastest way to seize her body, but that would be equivalent to him killing her with his own hands. She now had the mandate of heaven and the protection of all living beings. No matter who killed her, they would suffer a violent backlash. Not only would he lose the mandate of heaven, but his body would also be on the verge of collapse. The sky-climbing vine would also not immediately accept him as its new master. Li Qingshan and the others were eyeing him covetously outside. This was a result he couldn't bear. Only by devouring and digesting her nascent soul could he replace her. The hell snake glanced at him. There was no fear in its eyes, only coldness and a trace of unconcealable madness. Chuo Long was afraid that she would go crazy and destroy her nascent soul, so his yang spirit immediately gathered like 1,000,000 troops. Clad in golden armor, he killed his way into the capital. At this moment, the hell snake began to spin, forming a large vortex in the center, sucking in Chuo Long's yang spirit. With a change of light and shadow, Chuo Long's yang spirit condensed into a human form. Stepping on a muddy swamp, Xiao Chun looked around in bewilderment. Under the hazy sky, countless venomous snakes were wriggling and rolling in the swamp, devouring each other, and hissing sounds lingered in the ears, causing one's hair to stand on end. Viper hell! How could Chuo Long not have heard of the Naraka realm's hell of venomous snakes? He was even more familiar with the illustrations of the Naraka Sutra, but it was not enough to dispel his current shock. Or it could be said that it was precisely because he was clear that he couldn't understand. She actually internalized the venomous snake hell into her nascent soul. Ordinary legalist disciples borrowed the power of hell. Some idiots who were eager for quick success would inflict hellish torture on themselves in order to hone their will and purify their soul, but most of them died of madness. However, compared to her, those people were all normal people. In order to surpass the constraints of talent, they had no choice but to do so. When they truly reached her level, they would still work hard to become prison guards. After all, no one pursued immortality just to endure the pain of hell. She had practically thrown herself into the depths of hell. No matter where she was, it was equivalent to a poisonous snake hell. Day and night, without rest, without a moment of rest. Once he ascended, he would immediately fall into the viper hell. However, several breaths had passed, and she was still in a stalemate. Was it because of the blessing of heaven? Gu Yenying said with a smile, "Both of you have a point. My disciple has always been persevering and sinister. Since she dared to stay here to face the turtle dragon, she must have something to rely on. It won't be so easy for her to be taken over, but I don't think she has any chance of winning. Once the turtle dragon succeeds in taking over, it will be troublesome. Why don't we help her and destroy the turtle dragon in her body? If it really doesn't work, we will have done our best. When the turtle dragon succeeds in taking over, we will strike first and gain the upper hand." Good idea. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. Even if they could defeat the turtle dragon, it would be extremely difficult to kill him. This was a good opportunity. The four of them stood around Qian Rongji. The heaven-climbing vines coiled around them in all directions, but they did not extend towards them. However, the heaven-climbing vines had lost control, so they only had the instinct to entangle and devour. They were prepared for this. Little and waved his hand, and the samadhi flames of white bone burned fiercely, enveloping them all in flames. The vines shrank as soon as they came into contact with them, no longer approaching them. He then tossed the abandoned immortal sword, and a zigzagged sword light pierced through the clouds, cutting off the top of the heaven-climbing vines. In an instant, the 9 provinces and the human realm were separated once again. "Do it!" Li Qingshan slapped his palm on the top of Qian Rongji's head. The spirit turtle appeared indistinctly, pressing down fiercely. Gu Yenying manifested the hot wind hell, and hot wind surged into Qian Rongji's body. Chapter 1337. Li Qingshan's pupils constricted as he shouted, "Get back here!" Activating his earth force field, he grabbed hold of the Huilong in midair and pulled him back. Li Qingshan immediately sensed that something was wrong. The other party did not struggle at all, and his speed was shockingly fast. He was like a meteor crashing toward him. Li Qingshan only had time to raise his arms and make a defensive stance before he felt a great force slam into his body. With a crack, his arm bones broke at the same time, and half of his body was smashed into the mountain rocks. This was similar to how he had fallen from the sky to forcefully break the Imperial Dragon King's technique. Moreover, it was giving him a taste of his own medicine. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows and looked over. He saw that the bloody human figure was glowing with a domineering aura. A pair of golden dragon eyes looked down at Li Qingshan. There was no longer any anger or hatred in them, only a coldness like gold that could withstand raging flames. The world darkened. Bang! Huilong was sent flying. His chest caved in deeply. There was a spinning rock in it, and his back bulged up, almost pierced through. As it turned out, the moment Huilong moved, Luo Ho Xiaoming had already drawn his slingshot and locked onto his body. It was as if he had already predicted his counterattack and attacked the instant he clashed with Li Qingshan. However, there was no joy in Luo Ho Xiaoming's eyes. He keenly noticed that Huilong's chest was glowing with a faint golden light. Those were golden dragon scales that spread rapidly around his body like ripples of light. In the blink of an eye, they covered his entire body. A pair of dragon horns pierced through his forehead, showing off his unique true dragon bloodline in this world. Little and chanted the scripture silently. The 3 burial Dharma robe expanded in the wind, spanning hundreds of feet, and covered Hui Long with an earth-shattering momentum. Hui Long twisted his body in midair. His 5 fingers turned into a dragon claw and grabbed at Little, and this grab was like a cloud dragon, stretching out its claw. It was ethereal and not sharp, but it contained endless profundities. Li Qingshan's expression changed drastically, and he made a grabbing motion as well. Demonic ape flight. Si Long's body froze, and his dragon claw had already reached down. With a loud rumble, the place where Little N was standing. Suddenly, a deep pit with a circumference of 1,000 feet appeared. Large pieces of the mountain rocks were almost turned into powder. Not even a single piece of rock flew out. There was only an expanding white dust mist. Gu Yening grabbed Little and flew into the sky. She saw a clear claw mark on the mountain peak, and a trace of shock flashed across her face. Was this the true power of the Hui Long? This exchange was completed in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint. From the moment the Hui dragon soared into the sky to when Gu Yening saved Little, and it was only the blink of an eye, but it contained great danger. Chua Long spread his arms and said with his head held high, "I am the Son of Heaven, the Emperor of 9 regions." His voice was sonorous, like the sound of metal and stone, reverberating between heaven and earth. A faint clamor sounded from all directions, as if all living things were responding to him. As soon as he said that, the Son of Heaven changed, and all laws followed. The sky-climbing vine that was severed connected to the void again. It connected to the mortal realm. The 3 burial Dharma robe was supported by the surging dragon chi, but it couldn't envelop everything. "Qingshan, don't let him have a chance to breathe." Luo Ho Xiaoming said. He pulled the slingshot again and aimed at the Hui Long in the sky. Suddenly, he leaped up, and several vines appeared under his feet. The vines almost pierced through his feet. While he was in the air, thousands of vines appeared from the void again and tried to entangle him. All of a sudden, he had no room to dodge. It was very different from when he was uncontrolled just now. As the son of Azura, Luo Ho Xiaoming was not afraid of the sky-climbing vine like other grand cultivators. Even if he was caught, he wouldn't be in mortal danger. But he couldn't let the sky-climbing vine devour essence chi. Under such circumstances, it couldn't threaten the Hui Long at all. The Hui Long had already taken control of a part of the sky-climbing vine from Qian Rongji. Once he devoured Qian Rongji and took back the Son of Heaven, there would be no more suspense in this battle. Now, apart from Li Qingshan, no one could face the Hui Long's attack head-on, not even himself. "I'm a dragon slayer," Li Qingshan roared. The blood-red saber radiance pierced through the sky, challenging the majesty of a sovereign. World domination. With a thought from the Hui Long, the 8 cauldrons moved at the same time. They expanded against the wind and soared into the sky, surrounding him like a steel fortress. Li Qingshan saw that the Shuangzhou cauldron was missing, revealing a flaw. He merged with the saber and charged into the fortress. However, the Hui Long wasn't among them. The 8 cauldrons pressed down on him like 8 mountains. The flames in Little N's eyes burned fiercely. Her slender fingers moved continuously, activating the abandoned immortal sword, the skull prayer beads, and the 3 burial Dharma robe. The abandoned immortal sword's sword chi slashed at the sky-climbing vine again. The skull prayer beads gathered and separated, forming a skeleton demon formation. The most important thing was the 3-burial Dharma robe. This was the first time she used it, so she couldn't be sure of its effects. However, she trusted the enemy's judgment. If there were no threats at all, the flood dragon could have done what it did earlier, fending off the combined attacks of the 3 of them while continuing to devour Qian Rongji's soul nascence. It would have been able to buy a little more time, and it would not have launched an immediate counterattack. At the same time, he gripped the Buddha-slaying sword tightly and transmitted a thought to Gu Yenying. "If there's a chance, fly me over." "Understood." Gu Yenying nodded. The Huilong lured Li Qingshan into the fortress formed by the 8 cauldrons. He flew up alone and grabbed, with his dragon claw, the abandoned immortal sword that was slashing at the sky-climbing vine landed in his hand. He praised, "Good sword." Boom! The 8 cauldrons shattered, revealing a flower in full bloom. It had 3 colors. The stamen was sharp, and the petals were as red as blood. However, the edges were as black as ink. It was formed by pieces of blade light, and it shattered all the cauldrons. Countless fragments of the divine seal flew in all directions and fused into the world. The images of mountains, rivers, and lakes appeared in the world. The mountains were majestic, and the rivers surged. It gave people a feeling that it was more realistic than real mountains and rivers. The Huilong took a deep breath and raised the abandoned immortal sword high up. Dragon Chi gathered in his palm. True Dragon Emperor sword. One sword to level the world. The golden sword light expanded to 300 meters, causing the mountains, rivers, and lakes to lose their color. The voices of all living beings resounded in the world. It was like the roar of mountains and the roar of tsunamis. The unruly, abandoned, immortal sword couldn't resist at all. At this moment, he was the high and mighty ruler of the world. Everything in the world belonged to the king. Those who led the land were the king's subjects. All living beings were his subjects. If the king wanted his subjects to die, the subjects had no choice but to die. Li Qingshan was no exception. The destiny of heaven and the hearts of all living beings were condensed in the sword. It followed the trajectory of the ancient laws and slashed toward Li Qingshan. The flower withered after blooming. Li Qingshan had just broken out of the cauldron's encirclement. His demonic aura wasn't working well, and his body was full of openings. He stared at the irresistible and unavoidable sword of the emperor. He was like a madman at the end of his rope. He laughed wildly and used the tiger demon's fury. The tiger tattoo on his forehead formed a king character. Blood chi surged all over his body, and the image of the great freedom heavenly demon appeared behind him. It moved forward with an indomitable will and swung its blade to meet the attack. This blade didn't have any external support. It only had a resolute will of not fearing the destiny of heaven, not fearing the hearts of men, and fighting to the death. It was the blade of an ordinary man. Chapter 1338. It was like a ball of thick ink splashed across heaven and earth, bursting with red light and golden light. The mountains, rivers, and lakes that appeared in the air were like a mirage blown by a hot wind. They became blurry and quickly disappeared. The sky above Dragon Head Mountain was covered in spiderweb-like cracks. It was as if Jasper Palace could not bear their existence. The huge stone buildings that had stood on the mountain peak for tens of thousands of years crumbled like sand sculptures on the beach. However, the red light gradually dimmed and was drowned in the surging golden light. He was a demon king that was hated by heaven and cursed by all living beings. How could he fight against the might of heaven and the will of all living beings alone? The sword light penetrated every pore and was as sharp as a blade. Unknowingly, fine cracks covered his sturdy body, forming bloody scars. He was like a bronze that had been eroded by time and was peeling off piece by piece. He was completely oblivious to the fact that every piece of his skin was burning up and turning into specks of flame. The cracks were like the fissures of the earth. Scorching lava gushed out and set his entire body ablaze. He went against the surging golden light and rushed to the front of the Chua dragon. With a clang, the blade and the sword clashed. Li Qingshan and Chua Long looked at each other. One was like fire, the other like gold. Neither wavered. True gold did not fear fire, but the fire would eventually burn out. With a bang, Li Qingshan's body cracked and turned into thousands of flowing flames. The ending flower frenzy saber spun and flew out, falling from the mountain peak. There was a deep sword mark on it. Since the battle at Jasper Palace, he had fought the Golden Dragon and then defeated the Dragon King. His physique was already close to its limit. After shattering the 8 cauldrons, he was on the verge of collapse. Then, he had to face Chua Long's brilliant sword. He might as well use all his strength. Rather than being killed by this sword, it was more accurate to say that he burned himself to death. A bloody mark appeared on Chua Long's forehead, and blood flowed down. He was unmoved and stared at the thousands of flowing flames. He waved the abandoned immortal sword again, little and desperately activated the abandoned immortal sword, but there was no response. He was very anxious. "Send me over." "Calm down and trust them. If we get hit by this sword, we'll be dead," Gu Yening said sternly. Even though she had the speed of a Kuanping, she would be locked on by the Emperor's sword if she rashly approached the turtle dragon. There was no way he could escape. With a phoenix cry, the flowing fire gathered once more. Li Qingshan was reborn. But before he could use any divine abilities, he was grabbed by an invisible force and locked onto by the Emperor's sword will. Golden light flashed in Chua Long's eyes as he swung his sword a second time. True Dragon Emperor sword, one sword to level the world. Li Qingshan raised his head and saw the sword light slashing towards his face. His heart was filled with alarm. He knew that this Feng Long was determined to kill him. If he died again, if it turned into a phoenix egg, it would probably not even need Hui Long to swing his sword a third time. Just the remnant might of the sword light would be enough to destroy it. After a series of bitter battles, Chua Long understood one thing. If he didn't completely destroy Li Qingshan, this battle wouldn't end. As long as he killed this traitor, the enemy would no longer be a threat to him. At this critical juncture, Li Qingshan was fearless. He shouted and was about to swing his fist, but a figure blocked in front of him. Xiaoming. Luo Ho Xiaoming crossed his arms. There was a deep ball of darkness in them. It kept swallowing the whistling sword, Aura. Chapter 1339. Li Qingshan turned his head with everything he had and saw Luo Ho Xiaoming's smiling face. Apart from his pale face, he was completely unscathed. He was currently observing Li Qingshan's miserable state with great interest. Grabbing the hilt of the forsaken immortal sword with both hands, he planted a foot on Li Qingshan's chest and pulled it out forcefully. He lost his footing and fell to the ground. He just spread his limbs and looked at the sky. Asura were known to possess undying bodies. Not only could they constantly revive, but their bodies also possessed great vitality and regeneration. They could continue fighting even if their heads were chopped off. As an Asura god, he could even be reborn from a single droplet of blood, so his body was extremely tough. However, his cultivation was still low after all. After receiving a direct blow from the true Dragon Emperor's sword, his situation was no better than Li Qingshan's. He could only maintain his life, but it was impossible for him to continue fighting. Blood spurted out from Li Qingshan's wounds. He had almost died. His blood began to burn in the air, turning into flames and returning to his body. Only then did he survive. He relied on the power of the phoenix to hang on. He said in exasperation, "Thanks." Although he found the scripture of Tripitaka to be rather familiar for some reason, now was definitely not the time to pay attention to that. The battle had already reached a moment where the outcome would be decided. A mighty dragon's roar suddenly rang out, each louder than the last, like the waves of the sea. It rang through the entire dragon province, reaching the ends of the clouds. Rumble! Thunder rumbled in the clear sky, as if it was responding to the dragon's roar, drowning out the bell's sound. Crack! A crack appeared on the soul confusion bell, and the sound immediately dimmed. All of the blood vessels in Huilong's body surged, and veins bulged on his forehead. He gripped the skull prayer beads firmly, forcefully crushing 7 or 8 of them before pulling hard. The prayer beads shattered, and the strange cackling came to a halt. There was only little Anne's chanting. It was unaffected by anything else, repeating itself endlessly. Huilong wanted to rip off the 3 burial robes, but wherever his claws touched, it would all turn into samadhi flames of white bone. His face twisted even more viciously. He was no longer as calm as he was just now. This was a sign of cultivation deviation. He roared, "Shut up!" The golden dragon image flashed, and the Hui dragon traversed the void, with a single step clawing at Little, and Gu Yenying flew up with Little, and while the Chua dragon chased after them relentlessly, a dragon and a rock whizzed through the surroundings of the Dragon Head Mountain, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Sharp whistling sounds rose and fell in succession. Gu Yenying seemed to be at ease. Even Chuolong in the state of yang spirit was no match for her. Like flying a kite, he kept a safe distance from the Huilong, guarding against any spells that the Huilong might cast. There was a faint worry in his heart, so he did not leave the Dragon Head Mountain. Soon, her worries became reality. The Hui dragon suddenly stopped chasing and pounced towards Li Qingshan and Luo Ho Xiaoming. Even though the Chua dragon was crazy, the threat it posed was still fatal. Gu Yenying's eyes flashed like lightning. With a turn of his body, he flew toward Zhang Xian. The 2 figures pounced toward the peak of the mountain almost at the same time. Gu Yenying's speed was faster, but she was farther away from the peak than the Chua dragon. If it was a long-distance raid, this distance was nothing at all. But in such a short race, it was a heavenly moat that was difficult to reach. "Don't come over!" Li Qingshan shouted. According to his deduction, once they entered the Chua dragon's attack range, their lives would be in danger. Gu Yenying was almost about to collide with the Chua dragon. Even if she could be 1 step ahead, she would not be able to escape. It could be said that she would die without a doubt. They did not have the phoenix's nirvana or the immortal body. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. A bolt of lightning slowly spread in the sky, reflected in everyone's eyes. The Chua dragon waved its right arm and opened its sharp claws, showing off its sharpness. Life and death were tied in an instant. A white robe floated in front of Li Qingshan. The golden dragon claw was reflected in her ethereal eyes, quickly filling her vision. Li Qingshan felt pain in his shoulder. Gu Yenying had grabbed him, and little Ming with a solemn expression. He instantly understood her intentions, or little Anne's intentions. Only by blocking this move of the Chua dragon could they possibly escape with Gu Yenying. Little and the blood sea banner fluttered in the wind, fluttering in front of her. With a rip, the blood sea banner shattered and danced in the air. With a furious dragon roar, the dragon claw tore through the void and slashed toward them. The strong wind caused her seaweed-like long hair to flutter, gently caressing Li Qingshan's face. He opened his eyes wide and looked at her back. Her figure suddenly became blurry, as if she would dissipate at any moment. She put her palms together and closed her eyes, revealing a smile of understanding. Boom! Thunder exploded. Smoke and dust filled the air on Dragonhead Mountain. This was the solid mountain rock that had been crushed into powder. Gu Yenying grabbed Li Qingshan and Luo Ho Xiaoming and soared into the sky. Li Qingshan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, his insides burning, but he could not say a word. Her figure was faintly discernible in the smoke and dust. She put her palms together and lowered her head in silence. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Behind her was a huge crater. The Chua dragon's dragon claw scratched the side of her face. Its entire body trembled, and its eyes were filled with anger. It growled, "Qian Rongji!" The Chua dragon was fighting two battles at the same time. One was against Li Qingshan and the other was to devour Qian Rongji's nascent soul. Originally, the latter was a battle of annihilation that held an absolute advantage and posed no threat to him. However, in the previous battle, he had been forced to use the true Dragon Emperor sword and had no time to care about Qian Rongji. Even so, there was no suspense in the battle between the young spirit and the nascent soul until he put on the 3 burial robe. The 3 burial robe was a very special white bone magic item. It could reincarnate life and death, and when combined with the 3 burial sutra, it could convert the enemy to the path of white bone and great beauty. However, Little and did not have any confidence that the 3 burial robe could threaten the Chua dragon. After all, the difference in realms was too great. Even a demonic sword like the abandoned immortal sword had been turned into the Chua dragon's emperor sword. In fact, up until this moment, he had not been able to convert the Chua dragon, but he had converted Qian Rongji. This caused the Chua dragon's inner demons to be thrown into chaos, and he successfully regained control of a part of his body. At the critical moment, he twisted his wrist. The Chua dragon roared angrily and used all his strength to attack Little, but his body stiffened and twisted. All the attacks passed by Little and not harming her at all. He wanted to cast a spell, but his power always dissipated at the critical moment. The scattered skull prayer beads turned into skulls that bit at him. Originally, he did not care about such a small trick, but now he could not even dodge. All the acupoints on his joints were bitten, and he staggered to his knees. Little asked, "Are you all right?" "Kill me with that bone sword. In the end, I can't win against him." Qian Rongji's voice was intermittent, mixed in with the Chua dragon's desperate roars. This stalemate could not last for long. The Yang spirit could not be defeated. From the moment the Chua dragon had decided to possess her, she had already lost. A snake trying to swallow an elephant would definitely end up bursting its stomach. Even if she struggled at death's door, she would not be able to change the final outcome. "Kill me." She looked up at the Chua dragon, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Perhaps this was not bad. The person who set the world on fire would also set herself on fire. The person who could not forgive fate would also not be forgiven by fate. The Chua dragon recklessly devoured everything. Was it because the person it wanted to devour the most was herself? She had long been tired of this kind of reincarnation. She could finally stop here. She smiled and closed her eyes. Yes, she did not want to reincarnate anymore. She would rather have never existed. Thus, Little and brandished the Buddha's slaying sword. Floating Astronomy, you're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.